Alright. I apologize for this abrupt live stream. Basically, the reason for this live stream, right, is because in the Discord channel there's this I have no idea how to pronounce this. Dengil Deviliano, something like that. He actually asked me regarding the how to use face gen and creating it in Dust Studio. So I promised to do a video for him. I didn't really expect it to be so soon, but one of my commission actually has which is this particular one. Actually, I can use FaceGen to do this. So as a result, I thought I'll do this video. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm actually about halfway through. I have completed already the clothings and all that before I even started. So yeah, this will basically focus more on the face gen part, basically because everything else is already converted over. So yeah. Okay, so what I did, right, is basically I went into Dust Studio, and then I import the OBJ of the person's face. So in this particular case, it's this one, the OBJ of the face. Okay, and then I did some texture. I added the textures to it. Just checking whether this thing is actually live. Okay, so I added the textures to this model. So that's the base color, which is the diffuse. Then this is the S, which is the what do you call it? Spectacular. Then the normal map. And there are a few normal maps. This seems to be a very high def game. I mean I never played this game before, so I have no idea. So they have this map that is a normal one, and they also have one that has more wrinkles, and you know, a lot more wrinkles and a lot more facial expression kind of things. So don't use those, use the normal map. Okay, so that basically is what you really need. This one is a fairly simple one, so I don't think there is any really a lot of texture to go to, because you only have a few face textures here. Okay, so now you got the eyes, and this one doesn't even have gloss eyes, doesn't even have a spectacular map for the eyes, and then the iris and normal map, the corneta. Okay, so with this you go to preview, and this is essentially what you have in the face itself. Okay, then after that I also changed the dome orientation of the light to -90, which I think is the light will be coming from the camera directly onto the face. That is really what you want, because you want the face to be lit up properly when you do this. Okay, so that's that. Well, I found it interesting that their normal maps for the eyes is so sharp, you know, because normally it look more like this, but this is the first time I've seen a eye that is sunken right in the middle, inside in the iris. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Okay, so once you are done with this part, frame the face inside the picture as best as you can. Okay, and then render a picture out So what happens, right, is that I render it here. This is my result, the resulting render. Okay, then subsequently I take it to FaceGen, I put it in, That means to say, let me see. So I load the image in. Okay, then next, and then follow the prompt here. So center of the eye, then the nose, and the mouth. This model, I think it should come out quite good because the features are actually very defined. So if you notice the cheekbones, the outer jaw and the cheekbones are all very well defined, so you can actually find them easily. So you just click on the create button and it will generate out the face. Okay, so this is the resulting face. So you go here and you do a quick comparison just to see if there's any like weird parts that wasn't on the face and it actually appears here. So sometimes if you if the jaws are not so well defined, right, you may find really weird jaw lines here, so you might need to do a bit of adjustment here and there. But for this one, it came out pretty much perfectly actually. Yeah, it's pretty good. So next, what you do is you go to the files and then you save it. So you can save it to the default Genesis 8 female body, or you can define a custom texture. So what I have here, right, is actually for one of the more anime like skin, which don't have so much details on their skin, so I chose this particular one. But for this one, is a more realistic character. So if you notice, the style of the game is actually more realistic style, so I choose the default Genesis 8. Okay, then you give them a proper name. In this particular case, what I like to do is FG FaceGen underscore the name of the game underscore the name of the character. So in this case, it's Jesse Faden, something like that. Okay, so once this is done, so export. In this particular case, I don't actually think I need to do much to shape the face. Unlike my Tifa face model, right, I have to do a lot of morph shaping because that one is one of those that is not so clearly defined. So if you are interested, let me see if I can find the face of Tifa. Should be this one. So if you notice, the jawline is practically not is impossible to find, and the cheekbones is actually inwards, is somewhere here instead of towards the edge of the face. So I need to do a lot of morph shaping in order to get the face properly done. And that time I also don't know much about lighting, so you will see that there's a shadow down here which I had to deal with later as well. So it's not a very good example of something, you know, done properly. And this is the kind of face that you notice in a lot of those games. Like for example, this particular one is Dynasty Warrior 9 face. I did this a long time ago, but I don't think I have it anymore. The model was I don't have that anymore, right? So it's the same kind of face. It's just basically it's just an egg shaped face. So it's quite a bit harder to deal with as compared to something that's more realistic. So yeah, so like in this particular case, the shapes of the feature are all pretty well defined, so yeah, I don't foresee much problem with this. Okay, so after that, it's just load in the normal Genesis 8, and in the meantime, right, you will also want to deal with the textures. So you will load in the textures. In this case, I have it in a folder here, and what I do nowadays, last time I just leave it inside this default folder, but since I started sharing my model, right, I thought it'd be easier to put them all into the same folder, since Dust Studio doesn't care where the texture comes from as long as it's within its runtime folder. So I actually throw most of my textures inside the geometry, which by right they're not supposed to be there. So I have it here, then textures, and then I usually nowadays I just throw the entire folder in here like that, and then I edit it from here. So mainly the main concern, you don't really need a concern about the body and the hands, arms and legs. The main concern is actually the face. So if you notice the face textures, right, face gen actually comes up with this really weird streak that when they actually do the pasting over onto the face texture. So what you need to do is to get rid of it. So I use GIMP. If you use Photoshop, you have to find your own way. I have no idea how to use Photoshop to do this, but the tools are basically the same. So if you have a healing tool or something similar, right, so you can actually use that to do this. So basically you just need to select a spot relative to the area that you want to cover up. So if you notice there's a line down here, white color line, which actually outlines where the model, the texture of this the model has been pasted over the face. So you just go through that and blend it in as best as you can. Okay, it helps that that face gen actually does change the color tone of the face to match the added face texture. So if for example you want to do a dark elf or night elf, I should say, purple color skin, they will do that. I mean the skin tone will actually match in color. So all you need to do basically is just to get rid of these white color parts, the sticking out parts, right? So just go through that roughly, blend the whole thing in, okay, something like that. And then you would want to get rid of all these really weird spots. Like this part here, there's a very obvious tear, so blend that in as well. Same with the lips. The lips, if you see this black color line, right, what this actually is if you look at face gen, is this line here, which is this line here, right? So because face gen is actually using a photo instead of a model, I still wish that there is a proper, you know, model copy, as in you can actually copy the face of a game model into Dust Studio without the need of all these cumbersome workarounds, but that's a pipe dream for now. Right, so just roughly clear up all these jagged edges. Okay, so something like that. Something like that. Okay, then I also like to deal with the eyes also. I'm not sure whether it's actually necessary, but I try not to have the eyes inside here, you know. So this texture, right, is actually very is pretty high def. How do I put it? The texture itself is actually pretty nice, so you don't really have much to worry about compared to, say, if you need to deal with something like I don't know, a mobile game device model or something like that, where the texture isn't so nice, well defined, and you can see so many, you know, details and wrinkles on the skin and all that, and this part here. So yeah, normally if you have to deal with something that low poly, you won't have all these details, and then you have to be creative. You have to get creative in how you smoothen out the skin. So they are good and bad, because when the skin is that low, that, how to put it, that low res, you can actually get away with much less work. So you just need a whole swat of the whole thing is roughly the same color, good enough. But with something like this, it's a little bit, you need a little bit more work, a bit more cleaning up and stuff like that. Yeah, so roughly around like that. Okay, so then save the face out, and also deal with the eyes at this point of time. Yeah, so how I deal with the eyes, right? If you notice that this is the default eyes, this is the eyes that FaceGen gives you, but the let me see. But thus studios, their eyes has a totally different style of eyes. So if you look at the eyes here, this is how theirs look like. Okay, so open up. This is how their eyes look like, and this is what FaceGen gives us. So it's a totally mismatch, and this map is practically useless. You're not going to be using that for anything. Okay, so how to deal with the eyes, right? What I like to do is I like to take the original model. In this case, where did I put it? I'm sorry, because I have 3 different places where I keep my models, so I'm kind of a loss down here. Model work in progress. Yeah, I think this is the one. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so control, civilian, textures, and eyes. Okay, so 1024 times 1024 for eye texture. This is pretty amazing. Okay, so what I like to do is I put it onto the actual Dust Studio, right? So if you notice, right, no matter how you put it, the eyes is actually much smaller, because this part down here is actually supposed to be here, and this part down here is this part here. So what I do is I put it to 50% so that I can see through, and then roughly cover it, something like that. Okay, so just put it up like this. Okay, and you will see that the eye texture, this iris, is actually much bigger compared to this one here. Okay, so what you need to do is to resize it. In this case, I have this transformation tool, and resize, so something like that, around there. So you can see the eyes. There's this spot down here, this line down here. You have to keep it roughly within this boundary, so round about here, actually round about here. Okay, so to new layer and transform, and 100%, bam. So something like that. Okay, so you can see roughly this is the edge, and here this is the edge. Okay, then you will want to duplicate this, so duplicate the layer, then mirror it, so layers, transformation, and flip horizontal. This might not be strictly necessary, but I found that it's something that I like to do. Okay, then you move this to the other side. So if you want to, you can also put this to 50, just to check that the alignments are correct. So something like that, roughly around here. Okay, put to 100, and we have this like this. So next will be to actually chop up or get rid of all the extra. So what I do is I take the circular selection tool, the ellipse selection tool, and I select out the circle here. Okay. This is the good thing when with working with layers, you can do things like that. And then I put the eyes here and select this layer. Okay, invert selection and delete the outside part. So now I'm only left with this eyeball. Okay, then I do the same with this eye here. And select layer, invert selection and delete. Okay, so now what I have is something like this. Okay, then I save this out as the eye. So recently used and eyes. So I'll just override this one, doesn't really matter. Okay, and this step is optional, but I like to do this part. So what I do is use map and normal map. It will not give the kind of detail that that the previous map actually does. No, like this. Okay, so it will not give the kind of detail that the previous map actually does, because that one actually has all kinds of bump maps and really weird stuff inside, like oops, sorry, wrong button. Like, you know, this rough skin part here and the texture of the skin and all that. So it doesn't, you won't have that here inside this bump map, simply because I have no idea how to transfer the map over. Right, so what I can do is to give you a rough idea, and also to put in a bit of the bump map for the eyebrow, right, and the lips, so it makes it a little bit nicer. So it is not strictly necessary, but yeah, I find that it helps a little bit. Okay, so next, where is my Genesis face gen? Okay, so this is the default Genesis 8. So if you go to parameters and you go to actor, so the reason why I put face gen or FG, right, is because I can just type in here FG and I have all my morphs here already, so I don't need to go into the what do you call it, the tabs, and search for it slowly, right? So in this case it's Control C, Control just C. Oh yeah, before that I forgot, I'm sorry. They will have some issues if you don't do this step. There is this program that is, I've been talking and I just forgot about it. So there's this program called the Morph Fixer, Eye and Jaw Morph Fixer, right? And what it does is that it actually fixes some of the issue with the face gen morphs. It is necessary because otherwise, if say for example you open the mouth, the tongue, one or two vertices of the tongue, right, will go right through. So that's the reason why there's a jaw and tongue fix. And the eyes also need to be fixed, because otherwise I can actually show you what happens. I'm not sure whether this model will have this problem, because it's actually fairly well. So if you notice the eyes. Okay, so in this case, right, it's actually not very obvious, but you notice the eyes, right, is no longer round. It's more like a weird circle thingy. So with some of the more animated faces, right, say like for example LOL Jinx, before I fix it, the eyes are really oblong. It's more like an oval at that point of time, right? So this particular program is actually necessary. It's a free download, so you can just go to Eye and Jaw Morph Fixer Studio. You should be able to find it fairly easily. Okay, so I'll just fix this. Okay, and you'll output a morph file. Then what I like to do is I'll go back in and delete off the old file so that I don't open it by mistake. Okay, so now I'll close everything and I'll restart Dust Studio to give the new morph a chance to load in. Technically, you should be able to do that even if you just load in a new Genesis 8. But I found out that right after you open like 2 Genesis characters in SQL, the second one onwards will start to load relatively slowly. It will be much slower. So because of this, I find it's faster to just close the entire studio and reopen it again. And funny thing is, the male actually loads much faster than the female. Yeah, it's a weird thing. Probably because of all the morphs that I have for the female. I've done a lot of morphs in there. Okay, so that's about it for the face gen part. Yeah, so unfortunately you won't really be able to push all these details into the, like for example this part here where it looks more like real skin. Yeah, these are all part of the normal maps, so you can't really put that into your model unless you know how to deal with model the normal maps and combining the different model maps into each other. So I have no idea how to do this actually, so that's the reason why I didn't even want to. I mean, what I could do, I could chop up this part for example and then throw it down here, but then after that I have to manually go in and adjust a little bit here and there. So hey, in this case there actually is some details here and there. Okay, so it won't be totally bad, right? So let's give it a try. So go back to my Dust Studio. So now I have a Genesis 8. So I'll go to parameters, I'll go to actor and face gen and control fixed. Right, so now we have the face. Okay, then what I also like to do is to put in the face itself, control the model of the face, to do a comparison. So this is what I did with the Tifa face model. Basically just put in the face, right, and then side by side, then put in the textures for this one. You don't really need everything in this particular point. So see, right off the bat you notice that there's an issue already, the nose. Okay, so this is the kind of things that you need to deal with. Okay, so before that, let me go in and put in the face textures for this one. So template 1 to 4, right? So base texture and custom model, control, texture, and face. Okay, so there's a period of time where I basically, because I have no idea how to deal with all these parts down here, so I basically just remove them all of them. Yeah, so this one, template 2 is the torso, template 3 is the arms, sorry, the legs, template 4 is the arms. Okay, so with this you have the one without the seams, so you will notice that the skin tone is already a little bit different in this case. So don't use the texture shaded to see, you need to go into iRay to see how it renders out, because otherwise it won't be an accurate representation. Okay, so glossy, I basically turn off glossy because human skin, human skin don't look like this. It looks like plastic, you know, especially the head. So glossy color, I usually put it to black color, and then you do a little comparison. Okay, so this is where all the morphs come in. So in this case, what I need to do is the skin is actually fairly close already. This one is a little bit more lighter. It's a paler color. So if I am not wrong, it's been a while, so I have to recap a little bit. If I'm not wrong, it's actually a translucency color. So if I put it to white color, and bam, no, it looks more reddish. So, or is it this one? I know one of the color, this one, transmitted. So if I put it to white color, I cannot remember which one is the one that controls the color. I think probably this one. Yeah, somewhat more pale. Probably I'll need to change this color. So this part, right, you need to do a bit of experimentation to see which one will actually work better for your model. I honestly have no idea what's the best way to go about this particular process. I mean, because the two engines are actually so different. Last time, what I do is I directly remove all the shaders and I put it back to a default. That's default. So put it back to this default, and then I remove the spectacular color. So like this, and then change the ambient color like this. Or is it? I cannot remember. Let me give you a test. No, not this one. This particular color. There's one color that controls. No, it's not here. Sorry. It's actually Genesis 8 female materials, skin based material, and 3D light, and bam. So it'll take a while to run. So right off the bat, you'll notice that some of the facial expression is the facial shape is already wrong. Like for example, the actual model has a longer face. I think the jaw square jaw is about there, but it has a longer face. And what do you call these lines? The one that runs from the nose down to the cheek or the mouth area is actually deeper. I think there's a morph for that, which is the reason why when you are dealing with this, we actually use quite a lot of morphs. Like for example, the Tifa one, I use somewhat around, if I didn't remember wrongly, it's around 15 to 20 morphs just to get the face looking proper, right? So this is something that you need to deal with when you're working with face gen, because the face gen, right, even the problem with face gen, right, is that even though this model looks quite close to your picture, it's not actually very close. So you can move things around still, move things a little bit around here and there, but you have to deal with them inside the Dust Studio, because this model is not what goes into Dust Studio, right? Dust Studio, I have no idea how they do it, but it seems to take a rough approximation of the face from face gen only, so it's not like it's 100%. Okay, so there we go. So it looks a little bit a lot more. So they have this spectacular color, no, sorry, subsurface color. Yeah, this is the one. So this is the color that you use, right, to get the face to look closer to this. So in this case I need it to be a little bit paler, so something a little bit more peachy. So just adjust these two colors until you get something that is close to what you want. This one will be a lot stronger, so you do it in much lesser intervals. And yeah, so something close. It won't be 100% accurate, because I don't think you I mean, you need to be a lot better than what I can be with this in order to get close to 100%. Yeah, I'm not very good at texturing. So yeah, so the eyes you want to add in as well. Brows, eyes. Okay, so something like that. So don't see this the color from the texture shade is not very accurate, so you need to go to the what do you call it, iRay, or whatever your final rendering program will be, in order to get a more accurate idea of what your textures will look like. Okay, so next I'll have to deal with all the funny parts. So you go to parameters and you start throwing in morphs. In this case I will need the nose. I need it to be pointing downwards a little bit, so nose tip down, so something like that. So roughly around 45. This part down here of the nose, I have no idea what they call it. I have no idea how to pronounce it even. It's a pila. Right, so head, face, nose. Philly rum thingy. I have no idea. Okay, so angle you go negative quite a bit, not so much, a little bit out, 70. So minus 70, sorry. And then yeah, sometimes just play around with the morphs, different morphs, to see what they do, and then you can, like for example, now I'm trying to find this particular morph. I have no idea what they call that. So this is the rig, site define. There we go. No, not site. Lower site. Nope. Setting. Nose wing, do they call it? Oh, so I need something to make it pop up a little more. So with something like that. So 50. Nostril. I don't think you need to deal with the nostril because normally you won't see that. The lips looks to be okay. From the front at least. From the side it is not really okay. So mouth. The bad thing about the mouth is always there are tons of stuff inside there. So real world, lips. Okay, so maybe not so strongly, maybe 80. There's another thing that you can do, just to let you know, is that you can go to the bones directly to change things around. So, like for example, in this particular case, I want to move this center of the lips right up. So lips upper middle. So you can move this a little bit. Oh, this is matching more for expressions, not so much on the mouth side. Never mind. Okay, so let me deal with the bigger issues first. So face. I need a longer face. So dear. Jaw. machine. So this one should work better. This part here, I'm not sure what they call it. Before I go through, I think I forgot to put in the normal map for this. Oh, interesting. Did I screw up something here? Oh, I forgot to change the the textures. No wonder why things are really weird. Legs and arms. Okay, so now I get to do the colors again. Joy. So much for not having to do too much adjustment. It seems like there's still quite a lot of things that need to adjust on this model. Sorry, I expected it to be over quite fast. I think this will take a little bit longer. Chin length vertical, somewhat lower down. Okay, so 50. Roughly like that. Okay, so the eyes need to be a little bit smaller, or rather the eyelid needed to be a little bit lower. Yeah, so there are some times that you can't really do much about it because the moths don't exist. So you can just try the best that you can. and that's about it. So as you can see, the face isn't a perfect fit, but it's a lot closer than what we got from the when we started off. Right, so this is roughly the limit of face gen, give or take. I wish I knew where this part is. I'm not sure. It should be in cheeks, right? Okay, so this is probably as far as I can push it. Somebody like, for example, if you know of somebody with access to ZBrush, probably will do a better job. But yeah, that's about. That is about roughly where I would be able to take it. So this is roughly the type, the face that I will have. Okay, so yeah, so that's roughly how I'll do to get the face. Granted, I spent a lot less time on this than I did on the Tifa one. I actually spent a lot more time on Tifa than I did here. But that's because Tifa's morph is in a much worse shape from the start as compared to this one. Okay, so yeah, this is basically how I do the face gen part. So throw the hair in. Oops. Yep, so I'll stop the video here since the request is basically for face gen and how to actually do it. So this is roughly how I go about doing a face gen face. So it's not 100%. I don't think it ever can be, but it's pretty close. I'll say about 80%, 85% close to the actual model. So unfortunately, we don't have a way to be able to project out the morph directly, because Dust Studio actually has a what do you call it? Actually, let me try this. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can do a quick comparison to see if this thing actually works, because Dust Studio actually do have their own in-house face gen thingy that is close to what they say is supposed to be. They say this is supposed to be able to replicate what face gen can do. I tried it with Tifa. I don't see the result. Basically, the lips is horrible. As I recall, the jaw and all that it looks very good, but the lips is that's a deal breaker for me. But that one is for Tifa with those kind of animated anime round face. So let's try it with this more realistic face, and we see what happens. So I'll get this out of the way. And use the face transfer tool, this one here. So face transfer tool, female generate, that should be it. So this is the result that they gave. Let me generate it again. Not sure why the last 10% takes so long. Still spinning. But right off the bat, you already notice that there are some issues with it, namely to say I cannot compare it from here properly, so we have to wait a little while for this thing to finish loading. Okay, so this is the problem. Just looking at it, you'll notice the lips totally flat. The nose is pretty much spot on, to be honest. No, actually no, this part of the nose also has problems. The lips is horrible. The lips is really a deal breaker. The shape of the head is good, and yeah, that's about all I can say that's good for this particular face morph. Other than that, it's, yeah, that's the reason why I still prefer the face gen because of this. So if you notice here, it looks more like Voldemort, you know, the kind of face that the no lips that Voldemort would have. Yeah. Okay, so this is the reason why I don't like to use the face transfer tool. Okay, so let me delete this and this. So with this, I will end my video. To basically, this is just to show how I go about dealing with a face generated face, so to speak. Okay, so thank you very much for viewing. I hope this is useful, helpful to you while you do your own face gen morphs and all that. So yeah, if you have any additional morphs that you know of, let me know so that I can make it better, because honestly there are a few things that I'm still not very happy with this particular model, namely this line here. I have no idea how to get it. I think it's in one of the HD morphs which should have it, but I have no idea where. Right, so there are some things that I'm still not very happy with this model, but overall it's about 80-85% accurate, so I'll consider that as close enough, because honestly I don't think it's possible to get 100% accurate out of face gen, which is essentially a photo, right? So you will want something that is able to map 3D out. The closest I've ever seen comes from one that's called a Wrap3. It actually manages to wrap this Dust Studio mesh around the donors mesh or the other head mesh and make it look pretty good. The problem with that, right, is that it is almost impossible to get it back into Genesis, back into Dust Studio as a morph without breaking it somehow. I tried it over a dozen times, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and there's no common denominator that I can detect to determine whether it works or not. So in the end I had to give up on that as well, because it's a pity. I mean, when it works at some, it is actually pretty good. The problem is that over 80% of the time I cannot get it back into the studio. I only succeeded once, and because I screw up some other things on that particular model, it cannot continue. Yeah, so it is unfortunate. So this is the only way right now that I know of that is able to get a somewhat decent representation of the character into Genesis, into Dust Studio. Right. So sorry, I've been rambling along. So I'll end the this live stream here. So thank you very much for viewing, and yeah, thank you. So I'll end it.